My name is Sue Jackson. Today is March the 10th, 2018. I am here today to discuss, along with my son Don, the history of Jackson's Dairy. I came to Cartersville. I am not an original descendant here in Cartersville. I came here as an art supervisor for the Cartersville school system. They wanted to me to organize and start an art program throughout the Cartersville school system, and that is what I did. I met and married Sonny Jackson, who was part of the Jackson family, owners and operators of Jackson's Dairy Farm. His family came into this county in 1826. He dates back to the Zimmerai Jackson and Milton Jackson. And the two brothers came in 1826. They were builders and architects. They had built many, many houses here in this county, throughout this area. Most of the houses, or many of the houses, are still standing. You would find them to be distinguished by the Gothic gables of the houses, and usually there were three gables on their houses that they designed. Lots of lacy kind of woodwork trim on these houses. The one building you probably would remember most is the historic building next to the railroad tracks downtown. It was the old courthouse in Bartow County in Cartersville downtown. It is now the Bartow History Museum, and most of you are familiar with that building, but that was designed and built by the Jackson brothers. Zimmerai Jackson had a love of the land, and he purchased lots of property throughout the area and then passed it on to his sons and daughters. He passed on a farm in Rockmart to one son. One son received a farm on Pumpkin Vine Creek, one on Two Run Creek in Cassville, and William Anthony Jackson received the property here on Mission and Burnt Hickory Road. The home that is still standing on Mission Road was one of the Jackson houses. The back of that house was already there. It preceded the Civil War. So William Anthony had his father build the front part of the house around late 1800s. And it has the gables with a little trim on it also. It's still standing. The farm was then handed down to other members of the family, of course. And Sonny's direct descendant was William Anthony and his grandfather, Robert Wilson Jackson. Robert Wilson Jackson, along with his two sons, Lewis and Milton, started the dairy. They started milking cows in 1929 and delivered their first 17 quarts of milk at that particular time. Since I was not involved with the dairy, my profession was in the art field. So my son, Don Jackson, he was the last of the Jackson family to milk cows and produce milk. So it was a long line of Jacksons that was in the dairy business. And he will talk with you and tell you the history of the dairy business, how it started, how the dairy grew, and how they had their own trucks, their own business, and then where they went from there.
Hi, I'm Don Jackson. I'm third generation to run Jackson's Dairy in Cartersville, Georgia on Mission Road. Jackson's Dairy started in 1930, and we had a very small dairy that we have a picture of, that we bought milk from very small farmers, and we had our own milk also. We had an old Model T delivery truck, and we used to deliver about 17 quarts a day. Over the years, there were some other pictures. We also raised mules. We sold mules downtown. I think there's a picture of my granddad, Lewis Jackson, holding a mule and working on some wagons. Anyway, back to the dairy. They started building the dairy up, and they went into the processing business, and they were the only processing plant in Bartow County. And they processed the milk. The cows came in, were milked. Human hands never touched the milk. Went through a glass pipeline, through a strainer, and the milk was always strained into a tank, cooled down. And at that point, it started the processing. And some of the milk was run through a homogenization process where the milk's forced through very small holes in a stainless steel plate, and that breaks down the fat globules so the cream won't rise to the top anymore. And that keeps it from, it keeps it separated and smooth. Also, you can, they run it through the pasteurization process where it was heated up to 160 degrees for about 15 minutes and then cooled back down. That killed any bacteria that was in it. So anyway, that milk was even processed further into whipping cream, chocolate milk, buttermilk. We made different things. We had even orangeade that we made at in the processing plant. All these things were packaged in many different things. We started out with glass. We've got some glass Jackson Dairy bottles over. And we also went from there. It was cheaper to go to cartons, so they went to cartons, and they had every color, shape, carton, size you can think of. From there, all the milk was packaged, bottled, put in a cooler, and the trucks would back up to the front of the dairy. There was approximately 20 delivery trucks, and they would back up to these ramps, and the milk was loaded on because we sold all over the county, and we delivered all over the county to many little bitty stores all the way up toward Pine Log, way up at the north end of the county. Might only drop 2 quarts of milk, but we took it to them. We also did door-to-door delivery. Each truck had a couple of hop boys on the truck that would get out and run the milk in the little crate to the door and sit it on the doorstep. Some different people in town like Curtis Martin or Joe Frank Harris, our former governor, were hop boys on the trucks. And they had a big time getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and delivering milk to all the houses. Also, my dad did it too, and I heard a lot of stories about that. The cold, of course, the dogs, the ice, the snow. We were worse than the mailman about delivering milk. We also bid all the school milk, and we delivered to all the schools in Bartow County. We had all the contracts with the schools, and my granddad was very proud of that. He liked to service the schools. We worked quite a few people on the farm at that time. And that process went on until about 1969, when we sold the processing plant to Carroll Creamery, who was also a processing company in Carrollton, who in turn sold out to Atlanta Dairies, and then to Pet, and then to Parmalat. And when I finished, I was selling my milk to Connect, but that's a different story. But it just kept going down the line to different companies. The milk business is always changing constantly. But from that point on, we just basically tended to milking the cows, getting the milk in a tank, and a big tanker would pick it up and take it to a processing plant where it was processed under a different name, be it Atlanta Dairies or Pet or what name. But every morning we'd get down to the dairy about about 3:30, and we would feed the baby calves first, which we'd feed them leftover milk from the cows that were finishing up. And we'd feed the calves and clean all that up. We'd set up the milk. Somebody would go out and get the herd up. Usually all you had to do was open the gate. They were standing there waiting. to come in because they knew what time it was. And the cows would all file in one by one. We've got a great video showing them all filing in, the whole herd. And we milked about 150 cows twice a day. And got about 2,000 gallons of milk a day. But the cows would file in and wait on a lane where as soon as, boy, when you turn the milking machines on, their udders would just release. It'd just start going out on the cement everywhere because that sound would set them off. But we'd bring them in the barn 10 at a time and wash their udders down with an iodine water solution and dry them off. And then we'd put the automatic milkers on, which we've got some milkers here. And it had a vacuum that obviously had a suction, but you also had a pulsator line that gave a 60-40 ratio of squeezing to simulate someone's hand milking the cow. So the milk would go up in the line, in a glass Pyrex line, and it would go down and go through a pump and through a cloth strainer, which strained it, and it went into the cooler tank to be brought down to about 40 degrees to hold until the truck got there. We fed the cows many things. We had a concentrate in the barn that we always had to feed them, about a 20% protein. And a cow's like a female. They are on the same time frame with their gestation period, as you might say. They're pregnant for 9 months, just like a human female. And you want them to once they have a baby, they start producing real heavily, really fast. So their curve goes up real fast, and they go up to 5 gallons a day real quick. And then they slow down very slowly, like going down a slow grade for 10 months. And then you dry them off, and they get 2 months off until they have their next calf. And then they start the process over. But during that process, they eat anything from the concentrate in the barn, which is for the high-producing cows, or they get supplemented with hay, corn silage, cottonseed meal, citrus pulp, a number of byproducts from different companies. Brewer's Grain was a very good one to put a lot of milk in the cows. And we'd feed them all that, and after they milked and they went out and they would eat and usually go lay down for the rest of the day until time to get started again. They may graze a little bit, but that was a cow's day. But as far as the hay, we got up hay 3 times in the summer, and we'd start in about May, and we wouldn't finish getting up hay till the end of September. We needed about 1,200 rolls a year to get through the year. As far as corn silage, we'd plant in the early spring, and we'd cut the silage with a chopper. Dad would be in the field with the chopper, and I was the runner, and I ran the trailers back and forth. And Charlie Hurd, who worked on the farm for 54 years, was up in the top of the silo, and I would bring in the wagons and pull up next to the silos, which were hooked right up against the big red barns, which is in some of the pictures we've got. And we had a blower that would blow the silage up into the top, and Charlie would scatter it out up there, and it would take about 110 loads to fill both silos up. And then during the winter, after it had gone through a pickling process, every morning after we milked, one man would go up and shovel silage out of the silo until we got a load, and we'd mix it half and half with brewer's grain and put it in a mixer wagon and run it off in the troughs that the cows ate out of after they were milked. We finally quit doing the silage because it was a lot of work. We did it for many years, and it was tough climbing up and down that silo at 32 degrees in the morning. But we went to feed buggies, and we had 2 big, huge, long trailers, and we would dump the feed in the trailers and pull them out in the field and pull it to the cows. So it was just a different thought of how to do it, but that's kind of how we did that. A lot of the cows had names. I'm trying to think of some instances where we had names. I know I bought out some cows from Floyd and Nolan Ponder when they sold out. So of course one of them was named Floyd and one was named Nolan. And another cow stuck his head through a window one day, so she was called Windigal. And they were the shape on the side of their shape. The black mark might look like a state, so we'd name. I know one was named Tennessee because she had the state of Tennessee on her side, the shape of the markings. And of course, some of them were red colored or whatnot, and they'd be red or some silly name like that. Might have a lot of curly hair on their head, and they'd be curly. But every one of them had a name, and if you look at them every day the way we did, they become so personable. And it's just like your dog at home. You knew them. When they walked up to you, you knew them. There was another one named Susie. Poor old Susie couldn't stand up on the lane. She fell down all the time. And we had to finally get rid of her because she broke her hip. But there was a lot of fun on the farm. We all cut up all the time. And it was a great life. Growing up on the farm, I wouldn't take it for anything. And I learned a lot. And I'm still learning because we finally quit milking in June 3rd of 1999, milked the last cow. And I raised replacement heifers for other dairies for about 7 or 8 years. And it just got tough to haul them through Atlanta on trailers. Got caught in bumper-to-bumper traffic one day, and one had been eating some fresh green grass, and she relieved herself on the hood of the car that was next to me, so I wasn't very pretty sight to see. But anyway, I finally quit doing that, and we changed over to beef cattle so I could trade more on a local basis instead of running up and down to Jackson, Georgia, because most of the dairies in North Georgia are just about gone. Now, there may be one in Blairsville. You have to go about to Macon to start finding a lot of dairies. That's where they all are now. I graduated from Cartersville High School here in Cartersville, played for the Canes, and I loved that. And went on to the University of Georgia to major in dairy science, which is what I always wanted to do. That was all I could ever think about, was running that dairy. Majored in dairy science and graduated from the University of Georgia in 1986, and came back and immediately started running the dairy. And I ran it until '99. I can remember when I was 10 years old, Dad came up here and got me one day and said, "Come on, it's time for you to start." And I said, "Start what?" Because I'd been helping haul hay. He said, "You're driving the tractor now." And I said, "I am. I've never driven one." So they took me down and put me on the tractor in the middle of a 40-acre field. And Charlie, the guy that worked for us, showed me all the buttons and said, "Take off." And I said, "Well, what do I do?" And they said, "Just drive around until you know how to learn how to drive it." And after about an hour, I hadn't run into any trees or anything, and I knew how to drive it. And the next day, I was raking hay and doing the fluffing and the raking. And that took a big burden off of Dad and Charlie and let them go do other things. We started we always milked on a flat barn, which everybody in the dairy business now would think you were crazy for doing. But just a flat barn, you were on the same floor with the cows, and you had to bend over to put the milkers on the cows. And that was fine until they hit you in the face with a tail that was quite nasty. But the farmers changed and they started milking in a parlor with a pit. And the farmer would stand in the pit where the cow's feet were about at his waist level. So he didn't have to bend over anymore to put the milkers on. And then they've gone even farther from that now. They've moved into rotundas where the cows are in line, and the rotunda never stops turning. There's about 24 cows on it at a time. And as one goes out, one comes on, and the milkers are put on not by people anymore, by automatic milking machines that have like a laser that can see the end of the cow's teat on the udder, and it'll put the actual milker on the cow's teat and take it off when the cow's through milking. So it's come a long way. It's getting to where it's not going to be people's hands touching the cows much anymore. We did change. When I came back, I introduced some DHIA work, which is dairy herd records, and I also introduced doing artificial insemination. And I had the semen tank, and we still kept the bulls with the herd because that was your heat detection. They would show you which ones were ready. And when they came in, when they got through milking, I would just go ahead and breed them AI. also to make sure they were covered. But that way you genetically increase your herd over time. The only philosophies I can really remember from my great-granddad to my granddad to my dad to me was hard work. Hard work, and that's how you made a living in the dairy business. Never a day off. None of us ever had a day off. We might take a few hours off, but we didn't take time off. You just couldn't leave. It was very hands-on operation. All the small dairies in Georgia, like I know in the early 80s there were, I think, 14 dairies in Bartow County. And it just dwindled real quickly because it was all going big corporate dairies. And it was all about volume, just like everything else. It's about volume and quality, not just quality anymore. And you had to have more to make the same. And so a lot of the smaller guys just slowly phased out. None of the families wanted to take them over. They weren't interested. And we weren't small, but we weren't large either. And when I say a large dairy, we were milking about 150 twice a day. But a large dairy, you're talking 1,200, 1,300 cattle. And they never turn the milking machines off. They milk all day long. So that's what happened to all the small dairies. And it's gone to cheaper. Wherever the land's cheaper is where they can put the cows cheaper, is where they can make more milk with 1,200 cows and make the money that way. It's not about putting that quality small family business product on the market out there anymore. There are some farmers up in New York State that have gone in together, some small guys, and they're doing all the processing and everything on their own and doing a small family product. And it's close to New York City from what I understand, but I don't know that much about it. I'm proud to say that I'm a member of the U-Harley Farmers Club, which is a tradition in my family. The oldest club in the world. It started in 1860s or 70s, I think. 1890, I'm sorry. It started in 1890. There's always been 12 farming members and maybe 1 or 2 honorary members, which is usually the county agent or something like that. They all got together and started comparing farming processes and practices once a month. And my great-granddad, Robert Jackson, was in it, and my dad, Sonny Jackson, was in it, and I'm currently in it. And we still meet. We have all the minutes back for 125, 30 years. And we still meet. Very proud to say I'm in a part of the U-Harley Farmers Club. In 1995, I was lucky enough to be elected Farm Family of the Year for Bartow County. And we took a lot of pride in that. It's hard to get. It's quite an honor, and we were excited about that. We were chosen for the award because we worked hard. We had a good name out there. We had always produced a quality product, and it had been going on for generations, and we were proud to be nominated and elected Farm Family of the Year. The nerve center of the farm was always a little rock office that sat on the side of Mission Road, and I know we have a picture of it in 1937, I think. Mission Road being dirt or gravel at the time, not even paved. But that was the nerve center. That was where all the business was done, and the checks were written, and that was the center piece of the farm. Also, I want to say something about baling hay. When I was a little kid, all we had was a square baler. And I know that the people before me would probably say the greatest invention ever was a square baler. But I'm here to tell you, a square baler was a lot of work, and it took a lot of people to get it up and put it in the barns. The greatest thing ever invented was a round hay baler, and it took from working 10 people to get up the square bales to about 2 people to get up all the hay. So it sure did help a lot, and it meant a lot to me because that was hard work, getting those square bales up. I would like to thank Cartersville and Bartow County for all the support for Jackson Dairy Farm throughout the years, through the school system or through the local stores or through dropping it door to door. We thank you for all your support.